me all the way to the bank. We gonna drop this 9 figures in the bank. We got you. Do we believe we could beat them? Yeah. What other opportunity in life are you gonna get to make 100 and something million? What Bud said, weight classes for a reason. But then Bud and his team heard the TBV show. Then it's like, yo, you know what? Bud, we could throw the towel in. We gonna shit.
Boxing turmoil. Crawford versus Spence rematch back in play just when it seemed like the storm had passed in the boxing world. Chaos has returned. Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. are once again at the center of it. As of April 2025, talks of a rematch are no longer just whispers. Real negotiations are happening behind the scenes, and both fighters are stoking the flames with bold statements and escalating tension. Crawford and Spence have never shied away from verbal warfare, and with rematch discussions heating up, the jabs are flying both in interviews and on social media. In a recent fiery live exchange, things got personal. Spence, who hasn't fought since suffering a devastating loss to Crawford in July 2023, is more motivated than ever. He claims the first fight didn't reflect who he
truly is. See Errol get done like that. That's all. And I believe Errol Spence is a generational talent, great fighter. I wanted to see that immediately after that fight, but now time has kind of ran its course. I don't want to see Errol. I just don't.
Truly is, blaming the draining 147-pound weight cut for his lackluster performance. But Crawford isn't letting him rewrite history. He's reminding fans how he knocked Spence down 3 times and dominated every round. For Crawford, the result spoke for itself. Yet Spence insists that at 154 pounds, the outcome would be very different. This rematch saga has been a roller coaster since Spence exercised his rematch clause right after the first fight. That contract, however, clearly stated that unless either fighter submitted written notice saying they couldn't make welterweight 147 olds, the rematch would happen in the same division. Spence never officially filed that notice, but has repeatedly pushed for the fight to take place at 154. Crawford saw no reason to...
Can't tell you I wasn't in camp.
At the division he dominated for his entire career. All of a sudden, when it came time for this fight, he looked different. Why?
I wasn't in camp with him. I can't tell you. I don't know if his body finally broke down for being at 147 for too long. This is my first...
Because I don't want to personally... We talking about what we want to see. I don't want to see it. Because I know what it's going to look like. The same as it looked last time.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Errol Spence wasn't the same.
What was wrong with him?
He looked slow. He looked he looked sluggish.
Why?
Grant him that edge after such a one-sided win. And that's where the stalemate began. Spence's health complications added more delays. He underwent eye surgery and faced a long recovery, with questions swirling about whether he ever returned to peak form. Meanwhile, Crawford kept pushing forward, capturing another world title at 154 pounds by defeating Israel Madrimov, and showing little interest in revisiting the Spence rivalry. At one point, he shut the idea down completely, brushing it off with a simple, nah. But now, the tide is turning. Crawford is no longer slamming the door on a rematch, and Spence is...
That's sort of the spirit. The language is very, more precise and very definitive. But the concept is, out of fairness, is, let's not be selective. But weight can be used as an excuse and sort of say, I don't feel like it. Like, I'll go up for this guy, but not another guy. So,
is doubling down, calling him out relentlessly, demanding another shot. The fan base is split. Some believe Spence deserves a chance to prove himself at a more natural weight, arguing he was a shell of himself in the first fight. Others think he was simply outclassed, and that the result would be the same regardless of the weight. One thing is clear, boxing's...
All right, we're gonna wrap this.
I'm trying to tell you.
But now...
I don't want your reaction. Is the Errol Spence rematch on the table still, or...
Nah.
The most heated rivalry isn't over yet, and it might just be gearing up for its next explosive chapter. Crawford versus Spence heats up. Trash talk, tension, and Hall of Fame fellow Errol Spence Jr. is taking this rematch talk personally. He's no longer just asking for another shot. He's accusing Terence Crawford of ducking him, of trying to pretend the contract doesn't exist just because he dominated the first fight.
Crawford is just outclasses Errol Spence in every single category. I went that way regardless because stylistically, the fundamentals on that level.
Crawford, never one to let someone else control the story, is clapping back hard. He says Spence had his chance, got humiliated, and didn't even look like he belonged in the same ring. Now, both fighters are turning up the heat in real time, and it's clear they're ready to go to war again. Spence, despite everything he's been through, remains defiant. He insists the version of him that faced Crawford in 2023 wasn't the real one, that the weight cut to 147 left him drained and unable to perform. This time, at 154, he says the world will see who he really is. He's promising to prove the critics wrong. Crawford, on the other hand,
it's going to be the same. Might be even a little bit better. So, he might want to watch out before he activate the rematch clause. 84 or 47, but I'm sure he probably going to push the weight up. But there's not going to be no change in the decision. The performance still
is almost laughing at the idea that anything would change. He's calling Spence overrated, saying his style is predictable, and that if they step into the ring again, the beatdown will be even quicker than the first time. The trash talk is intensifying by the day. With both sides now confirming that negotiations are underway, this rematch is starting to feel more real than ever. But it's not just Crawford and Spence clashing. Tensions are spilling over into other corners of the sport.
Crawford beat boogers out that boy.
However,
Let's go! As you can see, man, breaking news. Errol Spence activated that rematch clause to fight Terence again, right? Let's be honest, we all saw the fight.
Crawford's comments about Spence's legacy have sparked an unexpected rift between him and longtime friend and protege, Shakur Stevenson. The two have shared years of mutual respect, mentorship, and championship ambition. But now they're seeing Errol Spence through very different lenses. It all started when Crawford appeared on the Pound for Pound podcast with Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo. When the topic of Spence's Hall of Fame credentials came up, Crawford didn't mince words. He acknowledged Spence's success at welterweight, unifying 3 titles and beating top names like Shawn Porter, Danny Garcia, and Yordenis Ugas, but still dismissed his Hall of Fame case outright. In Crawford's eyes, greatness demands more. To him, a true Hall of Famer dominates across multiple divisions, builds an indisputable resume.
Because I can retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame. He couldn't. Everything that I've accomplished, he's still trying to accomplish. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him. I honestly don't know if he make it to the Hall of Fame with the accolades that he didn't got right now. Man, I'm still a fan. I hope he do well. But like, once it got to the point where I moved up in weight and I'm in the same weight as Spence, it's just like, oh man, you ain't fighting nobody. You this, you that, you this, you that. So now they trying to blemish my accomplishment just to boost him up. I'm like, dude, you're not gonna do that.
And proves their legacy beyond a single weight class. Spence, he said, simply hasn't done that. That stance didn't sit well with Stevenson. One of boxing's brightest young stars, he's pushing back against Crawford's take, showing open respect for Spence's accomplishments and legacy. Now, fans, analysts, and even fighters are caught in the crossfire, debating what really defines a Hall of Fame career and whether Spence has done enough to earn his place among the greats. With personal stakes, legacy questions, and the fiercest rivalry in boxing.
What a question mark. Terence Bud Crawford, that's credit one of the best wins on your resume. It starts to make people look at your resume.
Reigniting. This rematch is about much more than a belt. It's about pride, history, and who gets the final word. Crawford's comments stir the pot. Even Shakur Stevenson pushes back. Terence Crawford didn't just critique Errol Spence Jr.'s career, he dropped a bomb on the entire boxing community. By outright dismissing Spence's Hall of Fame credentials, Crawford effectively shut down any conversation about his rival's place in the sport's history. And that's exactly why the backlash has been swift. Fans, analysts, and insiders have been calling Crawford out for what they see as either unnecessary disrespect or, depending on who you ask, cold, hard honesty. But the most unexpected pushback didn't come from commentators or former champions. It came from someone within Crawford's own circle, Shakur Stevenson. During an appearance on the Best Women's Boxing Show, Stevenson was asked directly about Crawford's take. Without hesitation, he stood up for Spence. "I feel as though Errol had a great career," Stevenson said. "If it wasn't for Bud, he would have been undisputed. He went and got every belt one by one. I think he's a Hall of Famer." That statement hit hard. Stevenson didn't just offer a respect.
Undisputed, so he went and got every belt one by one by one. I think he's a Hall of Famer.
That Errol Spence will not be a Hall of Famer. Can you just give me your thoughts on that?
I disagree.
You disagree? Why do you disagree?
I feel as though Errol had a great career. If it wasn't for Bud, he would have been.
Full disagreement. He completely reframed the narrative Crawford was trying to control. In Stevenson's eyes, Spence's reign at 147 pounds and his relentless path to unifying the division was Hall of Fame worthy. Crawford may have blocked his final step to undisputed status, but that didn't erase the dominance Spence displayed before their clash. This disagreement exposes one of boxing's oldest debates. What defines a Hall of Fame career? Is greatness reserved for
a Hall of Fame speech for Bud Crawford? My Hall of Fame speech, listing my credentials, listing my accolades for Bud Crawford would sound a lot better than your speech for Errol Spence, bro. Yeah, I don't think unifying and holding 3 titles automatically puts you in the Hall of Fame.
The tension between
Those run was long enough, no Diddy, to automatically put him in the Hall of Fame. He was a very good fighter. If there was a Hall of very good, he would be going into that. But Hall of Fame, no. If you were in charge of writing the Hall of Fame speech for Errol Spence, and I was in
those who conquer multiple divisions, or can a fighter's legacy be solidified by owning one weight class? Stevenson clearly believes the latter. Crawford, however, is holding his ground, arguing that even unifying a division like Spence did isn't enough for immortality in the sport. While the disagreement between the two isn't a full-on feud, it's sending ripples through boxing. Crawford and Stevenson have always shared a bond rooted in mutual respect, mentorship, and shared ambition. That makes this public split in opinion all the more striking.
So now it's going to be kind of hard, becoming a 3-weight world champion if you don't come back and, fight Tim Tszyu and be successful after his fight with Canelo. To fight him, it's only right that if that's what he want to do, I'll give it back to him. Outside of him, I was definitely looking for that Jamel Charlo fight. But they just stripped him for the WBO.
For Stevenson to go against his mentor so directly, it speaks volumes and raises questions about how their relationship might evolve moving forward. Adding even more heat to the conversation, Hall of Fame debates are notoriously subjective and political. Supporters of Spence argue that his journey, including bouncing back from a life-threatening car crash to defend his titles, only strengthens his case for the Hall. Others feel Crawford's stance could set a dangerous precedent, one that undervalues fighters who build elite legacies without changing weight classes. At the heart of all this is a deeper tension in the sport: how to measure greatness. And with Crawford, Stevenson, and Spence all in the spotlight, that question is once again front and center in boxing's most heated storyline. More than legacy. Crawford, Spence, and the battle beneath the surface, there's another layer to this Hall of Fame debate, and it cuts deeper than titles and accolades. For many, Terence Crawford's dismissal of Errol Spence Jr.'s legacy isn't just about setting high standards. It feels personal. Critics are saying Crawford's comments are part of a larger agenda to rewrite the narrative.
Making a plea to Terence Crawford, even if you elect to give Errol Spence Jr. a rematch, please do not do this for at least a year. Please don't do that. Meanwhile, of YouTube, let me make a plea right now to Terence Crawford. I understand you just beat him. You beat him thoroughly. You're the undisputed welterweight champion of the world. The WBO, the WBA, the WBC, the IBF titles. But you hugged him after the fight for a reason.
To ensure history remembers him as the superior fighter. Because if Spence earns a spot in the Hall of Fame, the world will have to acknowledge his greatness, even if Crawford beat him. And Crawford might not be ready for that. Spence, for his part, hasn't responded publicly to Crawford's remarks. But you don't need a press conference to note he took it personally. Spence has always taken immense pride in his career, unifying titles, facing elite opponents, and returning from near death after a brutal car crash. Being dismissed so casually by his biggest
champion that really wants to do damage and be spectacular. He can fight conventional, he can go southpaw. He brought the power with him, and I think the biggest thing is that Errol Spence might have gave him a little bit too much time to match. Errol can't take him. I think he's the bigger, stronger fighter, but Errol methodically marches down and breaks you down. I don't know if that can be done to Crawford. I think that Crawford is a marvelous boxer. I think he's got the temperament of a
rival is only adding fuel to his competitive fire.